For most of our lives, democracy has meant one thing. You vote every few years and then you trust the system to take care of the rest. But increasingly, people do not feel represented. They don't feel heard. And more than that, they don't feel connected to the institutions that shape their lives. So, what happens when the old democratic model no longer feels sufficient? My guest today is Charlie Jobson from House of the People, an initiative exploring what participatory democracy could look like in the 21st century, where citizens engage more directly into shaping policy rather than waiting for the next general election cycle. This isn't a party political conversation, it's a broader discussion about agency, trust, and what democratic renewal might mean in the age where so many people feel the system isn't working for them. Charlie, thank you so much. I'm so excited for this one.
Awesome. Now, Lewis, it's great to be here. I mean, Lewis and I had a little conversation on the phone a couple of days ago now, went on, and it was great to, I really wanted to come on here because it sounds like Lewis and I are probably quite aligned on some stuff as well, and just will be a great conversation to have.
Absolutely. So, let's kick off with when people talk about democracy feeling broken, like, what do you think they actually mean when they say that?
Because we're seeing a lot of studies coming out now with surprising studies saying, high percentages of people amongst our generation or the generations near us don't believe in democracy. I think that's often misconstrued. I think it's not that they don't believe in democracy as a principle, that individuals should have influence on the decisions that govern their lives. I think what they're often saying is that the actual the democratic system right now is broken. I mean, and broken is always, it's a bit of a media term usually that we'll use. Democratic, the system is broken, etc. I would try and veer away from that most of the time, but there certainly are things that need to be massively improved and can be improved upon. I think what we're seeing is people are looking at the democratic system as it stands, parliamentary democracy, and thinking, so I can log in to my banking app on my phone, I can do a GP appointment on my phone, I can do nearly everything in my life on my phone, yet I can't vote on my phone, and I can't, and we're still forced, or we still have to resort to seemingly archaic methods of governance, be it voice votes in parliament, which to me seems absurd that we should still have to rely upon the strength of the speaker's ears in how well they can hear about the disagreement between the ayes and the noes. I mean, what we can do on House of the People is you can log a vote in 2 seconds, just saying support or oppose on any bill or law. That to me seems an improvement.
Talk to me. Let's get into House of the People then, just so that everyone listening kind of understands the page we're starting at. What is the House of the People, and what do you intend it to do?
So you could essentially envision it as a third chamber, perhaps stepping in where the Commons has faltered. I mean, the Commons was originally created so that the people could be heard, the commoners. What we're now, and it was also, I won't get into the spiel yet. House of the People, you can vote on any bill or law going through Parliament. It's all online, houseofthepeople.com. We also provide summaries of all of the bills. There's still a few that are left to be done. MPs, you can check your MP profile, their registered interest. You can compare your votes to your MPs. It's essentially anything you need to know about the political system to either get involved or inform yourself about what's actually going on. Take a look at houseofthepeople.com and you will see it there. I mean, I've tried my utmost, and we're still building to make it the most comprehensive political platform in the UK and eventually worldwide.
Well, first off, a massive congratulations from me, because I have been talking about something like it for years in TV interviews and podcasts, saying this feels like an old system. It probably worked, before, and it's worked for hundreds of years, but that doesn't mean it works now, when so many people feel politically engaged, when we have to sort of watch this weird system of, okay, not even a majority of people anymore voted for these people. If you look at the Labour government, you could say, well, this current one has so many seats, but they actually were less popular and got less votes than Jeremy Corbyn when he went up against Boris Johnson. So it doesn't feel like we're even starting off from a base as the majority of people are bought into what you want to do. You then look at what's happened, since they got in, things like digital ID, which were not in their manifesto, things around abortion, not in their manifesto. And it's like, okay, so you weren't even popular to begin with, really. You didn't really have the people with you. And now you're doing things that you didn't even talk about. And I think a lot of people don't feel, well, let me put it to you. Do you think that people feel powerless? As in, this is all happening to me. There are these, let's call it elites over here that have got in. There's nothing I can do short of, an insurrection or a civil war. Um, is it powerlessness, or do people just feel unheard? Like they don't actually understand what the majority of normal people are dealing with?
I'll break that down. I think the powerlessness people feel,
Mm.
people definitely feel unheard. And that's one of the reasons why I think House of the People can be such a beneficial tool in reducing such violent insurrections or tendency to, I mean, even disruptive protests, etc. I was looking at them and thinking, how often do you think shouting in the street actually gets things through? And sometimes it does. Don't get me wrong, sometimes it does, but not. It wouldn't be as useful as 500,000 people coming together on a platform like House of the People and actually giving concrete data for Parliament to follow. Um, and I think, essentially the system itself, there's such a tendency. This might be one. There's such a tendency to blame the MPs or to hate. I mean, I come at the world anyway from a deterministic worldview, in the sense that I look at everyone as a product of the system and a product of everything that has happened to them. So there's no point in hating someone. If you don't like someone's action, look at the system that caused that action and try and rectify that. And so when we look at perhaps politicians doing things that they hadn't said they were going to do originally, or not doing things that they had previously said they were going to do, what that points to is a system that doesn't reward honesty. And again, that's a massive issue with representative democracy, the democratic system as a whole, is that it was essentially a temporary solution of how we can get to a better democratic system. It was currently, in hundreds of years ago, when we didn't have instant communication devices, levels of literacy were very low. It would have just been impossible to have an actual direct democratic system. That's no longer the case. So that's essentially. I think I've gone slightly onto a tangent there, but if you can bring me back, that's
Yeah,
the.
no. Well, what I wanted to kind of ask, because, like, as I say, I have kind of thought about this for a while. It makes no sense to me, the current system that we call it democracy. Every 4 or 5 years, we vote for someone sort of gets in, even though the majority of the public don't back them, and then they're enacting things that a lot of people aren't aligned with. A lot of things. If you put it to a referendum, I don't think we'd have a lot of the green policies. To be honest, I don't think a lot of the public are aligned with that. I think we'd probably have the death penalty back. To be honest, if I'm being honest about where I think the actual public is versus where the politicians are. One thing I always get when I talk about this, though, is, Lewis, people don't really care. Like, look at the turnout for actual general elections. Like, people don't want to be bothered with this. That's why we have politicians. What would you say to that?
I mean, I think we know one. It's not true. I mean, yes, the turnout was very low, 59.7% last general election, not even including the 8 million or so that aren't signed up to vote. It's not apathy with go on the street and talk to someone. A lot of the time, what you're going to hear people have a lot to say about the system, whether you think those are good ideas, whatever. People have a lot to say. There is no meaningful way for them to say it without just shouting into the void. That's what House of the
Mm.
People is there to fill. They're really, I think it's such a, I do find it a slightly lazy argument that people, I mean, maybe it's genuine from some, but people care so much. 100 years ago, women didn't have the vote. People have fought and died for the right to vote just in a representative election. It's quite clear that people do care significantly about having their voice heard.
And
Yeah.
where do you stand on? Because the other kind of thing that I have had pushback on when I've talked about a concept like this is, but Lewis, if you want to change the way the society is going and the laws and things we live under, like, you should have to get up off your sofa and go and vote in person. The
Yeah.
idea that people can do this from their sofa
Mm.
is too easy and people don't understand what they're doing. Where do you stand on
I,
that?
I don't know. I think the beauty of modern technology and progress as society is that we can make things that were previously inaccessible and hard to do much more efficient and accessible. I mean, I don't know,
Mm.
a toilet is a weird example, but look, toilets are now ubiquitous pretty much amongst people in the UK, and they weren't before, and that's due to technology. I think the argument of saying you're making it too easy to get involved in the system, I would query that person as to why they think that's a problem.
Mm.
I want as many people involved in the legislative making process and democratic process of this country, and to be honest, the world. I think that seems to me what true democracy and the fairest form of governance is. And I'd understand that what you'll probably get, I'll imagine as well, is the tyranny of the majority argument, which is it's a fair argument. This is where I slightly deviate, perhaps, is that I don't believe in pure majority will. For now, I think at the very least we should pay it some credence and try and get some data on what the majority do think. But I believe, yeah, sorry, Ali, yeah.
Yeah, well, this is kind of my next question is, so why is it on you to build this yourself? Like, I've had this idea for years, but you've actually gone and done something about it and started building it. And obviously it's something that needs to grow, but should this not have been something the politicians themselves had thought of over the years? Like, we know, for example, on the digital ID stuff, they're now going to have like a panel of, regular people to see how they feel about it. It's 100 people. It's 100 people.
Right.
Or sometimes you hear surveys of like, especially in newspapers, for example, they have a bar where you've got to survey over 2,000 people. Like 2,000 people, we've got almost 70 million people in the
Right.
country. Like that, 2,000 people is nothing. Why have they not already started to do this? Do you think that it's because it will make it look like they can't govern themselves? Are they worried about giving up power? Have they just not thought of it? Like, why is it that you've had to
I,
do this and the government didn't think to do it
I would
themselves?
struggle to believe that I'm the only person who's come up with an idea such as this. I mean, no ideas are formed in isolation anyway. I didn't have a sudden epiphany given to me. It was a cumulative process of looking at, studying stuff. I'm only 24. I've only studied for a certain amount of years and researched a certain amount of things. I'm sure someone as brilliant as, I don't know, people on the rest is the rest is politics. Maybe Rory Stewart could have come up with something like this. I would struggle to believe that no one's ever conceptualized something like this. The brilliance of artificial intelligence has allowed myself, someone that's not a traditionally trained coder, to do something like this. And I would have to probably go with your second option of not wanting to lose power, as perhaps potentially conspiratorial as it sounds.
Mm.
People in positions of power frequently do not want to give up that power. Yeah, and if this app can essentially doesn't show the role of politicians to be useless, but perhaps overstated within the system. I mean, I want to.
And so,
Uh,
as part of your job, actually convincing politicians and institutions that this is a benefit for them. Because for me, if I were Prime Minister, this would just be amazing because I could go out to the people on individual policies and say, look, we've consulted them. Anyone that cared has voted. We've had 8 million people vote. This is where the public is. This is what we're going to do. Like, the people have been
and
consulted.
exactly. I mean, that's what I would want as well. And we've had some MPs follow us on X, HOTP official, which is great to see. Because again, as I've said before, this is to make their job easier. For now,
Mm,
it's all they have to do is take a look at what their constituents have said and then vote upon that. I mean, it comes down to the argument of what do we actually think the role of an elected representative is. For me personally, what I would go by is the House of Commons definition, where they are there to represent their constituents and the will of their constituents.
yeah.
So hopefully what they would do is they would take a look at the houseofthepeople.com, look at what their constituents say, and vote based upon that. But with the current 2000 polls, if we look at Ipsos polls, etc., what that allows media to do, and also pollsters themselves, as we've seen recently with the bit it was the YouGov scandal, came down to how they use the algorithm to calculate voting intention because from such a small number. And yeah, that's always going to be a problem because it's on the algorithm then, isn't it? If you
Mm.
have 2,000 people, it's how do you extrapolate that data into 70 million? Whereas if we are what House of the People's pushing for, and we're getting there, is we want the whole country on here because it'll be so easy.
How do you think it would help with cohesion? So, for example, we've had a lot of politicians over the years make massive mistakes. A lot of people would look back at the Iraq War, for example, Liz Truss failing to brief the markets and everything that happened there. Um, Ed Miliband, not Ed Miliband, sorry. Who was it that didn't build any nuclear power stations? Lib Dem leader.
Like,
Nick Clegg, that's it. How could I forget his name after all the damage he's done? So a lot of decisions made where it feels like politicians get to just walk away, get a job with their mates. They're fine. They got to say they were the prime minister or whatever they were, making a lot of money, while the rest of us sort of suffer for these bad decisions. Look
Mm,
at the amount of money that's just been wasted on trying to put a tunnel underneath Stonehenge.
uh,
Look at HS2, all of the land that was bought there. All of these bad decisions, where for me as a taxpayer, and every time now I have to pay my tax on top of what I already pay, I'm like, oh my God, and they're
mm,
just throwing it up the wall.
mm.
Whereas if the people were actually able to say, look, we, vote on this is what we want our energy policy to be, even if it was the wrong decision, do we think that actually from a cohesion point of view, people would feel, well, you know what, we all got it wrong, rather
100%.
than one person got it wrong and they've been able to walk off into the sunset.
100%.
They're
And
not in trouble
again,
by it.
a classic argument against more direct democracy is, well, it boils down to the people aren't capable of making their own decisions en masse. We always need specialists. Well, like, as you pointed out with all of the, let's look at where some of the decisions of the specialists have got us.
Mm,
Beyond that, I would question whether the 650 MPs and 800 or so lords are the most equipped people within the country to decide upon said issues.
hmm
Beyond that, what we're also going to see, and something that really has annoyed me for quite a while personally, and the reason as to why I made this is the tribalism and popularity contest aspect of politics, and seeing just the absolute farce that it's become. That is symptomatic of the system, because the system is no longer based on policy. It's based on stoking hate against other sides, ridiculing other sides in ad hominem attacks, like against Zach Polanski. Ridiculous. Why are you focusing on the man's physical characteristics? It's not what it's about.
mm.
Um, and then beyond that, we would see that our views go cross over party lines so much. One of my favorite features to use on House of the People is just calculate MP alignment. So it takes all your views, all your votes on the website, and because I've been using it for quite a while, I've got quite a few, so it's good data. And then just ranks all the MPs by how closely their votes align to your votes. And I tell you what, you'll be surprised, I would imagine, by some of the MPs that show up there.
Yeah.
And beyond that, it also gives you essentially a party what party makeup. So what percentage of each party do your votes align to? And what you'll find is, yeah, you're not Labour till you die, you're not Tory till you die. You shouldn't be, at least. Think about the policy is what I want out of this.
Casting forward to if you are really successful with this and this, grows and becomes an ingrained part of actually how we govern the country. Will the role of MPs have to be reimagined? For example, you've talked about it a lot, check what your constituency thinks for MPs and things like that. But are we going to really need these via constituency? I mean, we're already talking about proportional representation, so there may be changes afoot anyway. But with the role of an MP, I mean, A, would you need an MP if we are all representing ourselves? And would therefore the government actually be more of a smaller affair where they basically cost up and pull in experts to deliver costed up options to the people to allow them to vote on certain things, rather than this theatre we have now?
I won't go too far in what I'm imagining anyway, just in terms of, I want to make it clear that this is not an antagonistic force towards the current system.
Mm,
This is an update, essentially, or a
yep.
proposed update for the system. And when it comes down to it, and when it is, I'll be confident here, when it is an integral part of the political system, House of the People, I imagine it'll be up to the people to decide what the MP's role should be.
Yeah. You mentioned we are quite tribal at the moment, and we are.
Mm.
How do you make sure that this appeals to left, right, undecided, not bothered, don't know who the prime minister is? How do you reach out to all those different people?
I mean, that's the challenge, isn't it? What I'm doing right now, on a personal level, I'm not a big fan of the camera anyway. I love having these sort of conversations, but I'm doing as many of these interviews, etc., to get the word out. We're going to be clipping a lot of these as well, to try and get some virality. But again, with the platform itself is what's going to keep people there. I'm currently it's still a work in progress as well, but I'm very confident in the state of the platform. Very politically neutral. All of the summaries we provide are supposed to be as neutral as possible. We're not there. We are not a political force, and we've actually been quite fortunate with reception in that, as people are understanding that this is not a political party. This is not associated with any political wing. I mean, we talked about it on the phone. I believe the classification of left and right often causes more division than it actually solves, and causes us to see each other as the enemy when it shouldn't. But this is not, yeah, people are gonna understand and have understood going onto the app that all this is a tool. You know, look at it more as a social media or something. Look at it more as you do Reddit or X than you do as the Labour Party or Reform. You know, that is what we are. We are a platform, a politically neutral platform, as opposed to a political movement.
And not that I'm doing your PR for you, but obviously, I guess eventually you would be able to sort of send out press releases to news organizations and
We
say, data
we
from House of the People says X and Y.
Exactly, exactly. And we have been getting in contact with a lot of people, and it's great to see who's been responding to us, etc. Because you know, with such a I'm going to say it, I think it's a great idea. So
It
with
is a great idea.
it's such a great idea. Honestly, getting in contact with some of these people that you wouldn't expect to come back to you, because it's something that does actually enthuse people, because it is relatively novel in the political sphere, and we're getting people on both the left and the right who are responding to that.
Yeah.
Currently, I reckon it will take us the longest to reach will be the closer to the center you go, I would imagine,
Mm,
because those most disenfranchised by the system are those that will gravitate towards a platform that is going to update or reform the system first.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
We can't talk about this, I guess, without talking about Brexit, because a lot of people will say, well, look what happens when you let the people vote. Because I would love more referendums. Like, I would eventually love to migrate to a system that you're proposing, but I think in the meantime,
Mm.
I would love more referendums, but I think that there's no real appetite for it. Now, I would say, well, personally, we went for the biggest thing we could ever do because it wasn't a domestic policy. If we'd have voted on something domestic, it wouldn't have been so dramatic. It would have just been done. It was within our power. Brexit was trickier because you had all these other countries involved and you've got to negotiate. It
Well,
wasn't as simple as a domestic
also, I think
policy thing would have been.
the main question is who's happy out of Brexit? Are the people who voted for Brexit happy? No, because what were they
Mm,
voting for primarily? It was probably lowered immigration rates was a central part of a lot of the voting, and immigration rates went from what 288,000 to over 900,000 in that span.
yeah.
Then you've got all the people who signed Article 50, so it's like that's 6 million who are then deeply dissatisfied with the outcome as well. So
Well,
I pose
one
the
thing I
question,
will say to you on that, because I got asked
yeah.
that question on TV, and one thing I did say is I think there are some people that are happy. I think there are some people that voted for Brexit and are annoyed at the actual reality of it. And you
Mm.
could say, well, you had a lot of people that were in charge of delivering it that didn't actually believe in it,
I think,
and wanted to kind of try and do an appease thing, which you just couldn't do. You're in a shark fight with other nations. Like, come on. But I think that there are people that are happy that voted on principle. And
mm.
I think that there are a lot of conversations that happen about politics and about the way that we are governed. And we miss this idea of people's principles. There are some people I know that voted for Brexit because they, in principle, said, I don't want other nations having an impact on the laws we follow. I want the MPs and the people creating legislation to be accountable to me and us, and we can vote them out if everyone agrees with me every 4 or 5 years. That was the principle of the thing. And I find a lot of other laws and things that we talk about in politics, people get so into the weeds. But I think a lot of it sometimes comes down to people's principles of, well, no, I think principally this should be how it works or whatever. How do you account for people's principles in these kind
Well,
of things?
I think that's how that's such a great question, to be honest, Luis. Like the what we're seeing on the platform itself. So the way that it's organized currently is it's a social media like feed on on both desktop and iOS. So when you're scrolling through, you're going to get first essentially you get a short summary of what the bill does and also what a vote of support or oppose means. You can click on any of those and go down to a very detailed summary as well about what support a vote of support or oppose entails. But I think often, and I have no shame in saying this, I'm sure a lot of people will be going through their feed, read the principal vote, and press support or oppose. And I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing because I still think that that's their opinion,
Mm.
and that we should account for that. Because otherwise, I wonder how many. how many of us are so capable of escaping all of our own biases when voting? Are we not all voting in principle almost always anyway? I mean, maybe there's a certain few geniuses who can only vote on principle in some sort of Kantian noumenal realm, but for the most part, we are all voting on our own principles, and we should all amass those principles together and find the greatest compromise between them.
Mm. Well, kind of off of that, I mean, some critics might say that actually legislation is complex, that requires expertise. How do you balance public voting with kind of competence? I mean, to me, I would love to eventually on the platform, get a breakdown by video, a 60-second video, or some people might want to read the white paper, or some people
In the
might just
work,
need the stuff.
in the
And we live in
workplace,
an AI world right now, right? Which is
yeah.
like, I'll understand this if you tell it to me like this. So is it more about that, or is there actually no, some things are just too complex for the average person to understand?
I mean, I think if prior to the creation of House of the People, I think if the average person was to go, as I did, onto the Parliament website or onto Hansard, these not only are they pretty technologically inaccessible. I mean, I tell you what, guys, and I don't mean to be, but you need an update. You really need an update on your websites. They're crap. But the language that it's written in, these bills, first of all, yes, some of them are extremely lengthy, 500 pages. I would like to see proof that everyone in Parliament has read all 500 pages that is voting on them as well, because I highly doubt that.
Hmm.
Second of all, uh, the actual summaries, they don't provide summaries for the vast majority. The only ones that they usually provide summaries for are private bills from external sponsors, and they're usually pretty good, ironically, at providing summaries of what their bill will do. The main issue is that Parliament writes in legalese. What you'll see from most bills is they'll say a bill to make provision about this, and it has almost no description, etc. What House of the People does is we just put it into normal English. That we don't need to only democratize influence, but it's also language as well. I mean, one of my favorite philosophers back in the day is whatever. It's a big thing he talks about is write in language that is accessible. Because if you truly understand an idea and truly are competent in it, you'll be able to explain it in simplified language. Of course, sometimes we need specialist terms because there truly is no alternative. But it's something that's always annoys me in public discourse, so to speak, is people trying to sound clever for no reason. Well, what it is, because yeah.
I think AI is changing that now. It's like,
Mm,
but did someone read it and actually understand what you were saying? But also, I think there is a feeling in the country right now. If I you know have my finger on the pulse of everything is just too complicated anyway. Like we
mm,
probably need an age of simplification, like whether it's doing your taxes and you didn't know that this threshold affected that or whatever it is, or I mean, so many people say now, just the red tape is just destroying entrepreneurship. So
mm.
actually trying to move to more simpler legislation that people can actually understand and get the concept of makes more sense to me.
I mean, what we'll really be doing anyway is we're essentially gathering the principles, aren't we? So maybe if
Mm.
that's what the vote is about. The technicals, etc. Yeah, the language can be simplified so much. I mean, I'd urge people to go take a look at houseofthepeople.com and have a look at some of our summaries and then compare what is provided on Parliament's website, because ours is written in English and theirs is written in legalese. So that's the main
Absolutely.
difference.
Talk to me a little bit about, I mean, we're a little bit far out from a general election now. Now, what are the things I've thought about this a lot. What are the things that would make sense to me is that as you get closer to an election, those polls get tighter and people think, what can we do? What can we say? Saying, actually, if you vote for us, we will bring in House of the People and you will all have more of a say. Like, I don't care whether you're far right, far left, or an idiot or bin face. I would vote for that because I'm like,
Then
well, it doesn't really matter then, is it? Because I
no,
will get more of a say in how we win.
because you're
If
just a
you were
best.
if you were to be contacted by a party, because obviously you're trying to be sort of apolitical in a sort of sense of not
Mhm.
identify, like how would those kind of conversations go if Reform or the Conservatives or the Greens came and said, look, what we'd like is that once we're in, we will build this up a bit more and we will roll it out and people will be able to
Fantastic.
actually vote. Oh, how would that work?
We will certainly have discussions with any party that wants to do that. I mean, the main point about being apolitical from House of the People standpoint is that we engage with everyone and anyone who supports, as you've said, I don't care if you're far left or far right. If you support a policy like this, you support democracy. And that's
Yeah.
what I care about fundamentally, rather than the nitty gritties. So yeah, we'd love to have conversations like that, and we'll always be transparent as well if such conversations do take place. It would be so useful for political parties to use something like this to see where their electorate stands, because otherwise you're just shooting in the dark half the time.
Yeah. Honestly, if a political party, I don't even care who it would be, said that they would do this, I would vote for it. Because
Yeah,
then
I'll
I
say that
get
now. I'll say that now as well.
yeah,
First person to do it, get my vote for next general election.
right? Because it just brings it just gives us all a voice. And I think
Yeah.
that because where you're coming in as well, I think that there's a wider cultural thing at the moment going on, right? About the elites versus the cattle.
Mhm.
Whether that is showing up in things like the Epstein files and all these rich people doing whatever,
Mhm.
whether that's showing up in digital ID. A lot of people thinking, well, if that could be misused, you could literally turn off my ability to pay for things. And so, I think there's a lot of conversations around the elites controlling us. And I think that there is time, and especially as the technology gets better, that would be easier to do. So I do think that and especially after COVID, can I say, where people
Mhm.
say, actually, that was too dangerous. We all need a way to have a voice and we all sort of collectively decide how we live.
That's the point. I mean, it's yeah. Carry on. Sorry. Sorry.
Well, no, so I'm just saying, I think that you are coming in at a perfect time.
Thank you.
I wanted to kind of put it to you about how do the young feel? Because you're a little bit younger than me,
Little
about
bit,
10
little
years
bit.
or
Go to
so.
you coming through though. Go to you coming through. So
But obviously, I don't want to get into trouble. I work a lot in broadcast. There are a lot of established people that have been there a long time that have seen it all. That when I talk about
Mhm.
things like this, like mate, it's just never going to happen. Just whatever. But
Mm.
the young are, tech savvy. They seem. I've got to say, I've got a 16-year-old.
Mm.
Sometimes he will know what's happening in politics before I do. And I'm like, but I go on TV to discuss the news. How do you know about this before me? And I'm like, oh, that's just probably something you've seen on TikTok. But then I'll Google it, and he's
Very
right.
true. I know.
So I am, I think that the young are quite involved in this. So do you think that there is almost a battle of the generations that's going to have to happen, where the young kind of say, this is the way we want to be governed going forward,
Yeah.
and have to convince an older establishment that isn't working efficiently from what I can see, that this would be the way forward and be of help to them?
The establishment argument, definitely, I hear. Ironically, when it comes to the age, if I look at our user base right now, it's actually more swayed towards the older people, which is great. Thanks
Oh.
to the older people. But I think getting younger people on board will actually should be easier. Ironically, though, we haven't done it yet. Um, I think people of a lot of generations like this, to be honest, would like this idea. I think go back even 100 years and tell someone that it was possible, and they probably quite like it as a concept.
Mm.
Um, I do hear what you mean when it comes to establishment figures and being quite disparaging. I mean, I've had my own experience of it. There's an idea, there's almost an ad hominem argument that a lot of these people within the establishment use, or more of a fallacy of authority, where they say, because you haven't worked exactly in this domain that I work in, you therefore cannot have an opinion on this. I mean, okay, well, why are you speaking to me then? It's just not true. As you said, if your son can get information from TikTok, and yeah, sometimes it comes across as funny that people just think it's instantly BS, but no, it's not. I mean, what modern media needs to do and has failed to do, as we're seeing the viewership numbers of mainstream media absolutely collapse in comparison to social media, is they need to adapt to the modern generation as well. But a lot of these establishment industries or yeah, establishment industries of the media, they are not adapting to the modern world. And in a way, I mean, I don't want to give too much of my own opinion, but that's something that I support in terms of what I would like to see. What House of the People is a symptom of, a wider symptom of a cultural zeitgeist, is a movement towards individual sovereignty and power. Um, Essentially, we're seeing with social media, people being able to instantly communicate with everyone across the world. We no longer need the intermediaries. That's what we're seeing. There's no need for establishment intermediaries as there was prior. And I think that's a brilliant thing. I really do. Because I think if people from all across the world can communicate, can engage, and can have influence upon one another without almost having to be, it has dangers. Of course it has dangers. We see the dangers on Twitter. Sometimes or X, it's a complete cesspit, to be honest, sometimes because of these algorithms. But the core concept of let's get rid of the intermediaries. We can all do this ourselves now. I think that's where the modern generation is going. And I think that's what House of the People is trying to do.
Yeah. Well, I think what we really need to do now is kind of run a scenario.
Mhm.
So let's run a scenario together. Let's say, in 5 years in the future, actually this is being used by the majority of Brits. Everyone at least has the ability to download it, and the
Mhm.
politicians will say, look, whatever
I could quickly
people.
say app is coming out within the next 2 weeks. So I haven't mentioned that yet. Just
There we
quickly.
go. And I'll put all the links below as well if the listeners are interested in it. Um So let's say it's 5 minutes in the future. Everyone does have an app on their phone. If they want to be involved, they can be. And the politicians say, "Look, we put these things to the people. And if the people vote, we will enact it." The vote is: should we have the death penalty back? And let's say it's a binary yes or no choice, and it comes in at 52-48.
Mm.
um, You had ideas on how we don't just go to
Mm.
majority rules and how we work through that. So talk to me about how we would work through that
That
so that we
base
could bring the most
principle
people
argument.
with us.
Yeah, 'cause see, I haven't considered that exact thing before. What I understand by algorithmized compromise is that it has to be as well when we have to move eventually. This is House of the People is still the first iteration of how House of the People will be. I want to move beyond just yes or no answers as well, but do it in a
Mm.
non-time consuming way. That will become possible in the future. I'm certain of it. Um, so what we could do with that, it becomes very difficult in that specific scenario to say we have 52% yes, 48% no. How do we then find a compromise between those? Maybe we only allow 9 out of 10 people to die a year. I don't know. Um, but so that specific instance could be difficult with the current iteration. Um, but at the same time, would it not also be quite useful to know that 52% do support that and 48% are against that, and then actually do something with that information rather than just saying, what do 650 people think?
Well, it seems to me that we have to re-examine the way we do things, right? So
Mm,
Brexit was a one vote thing. Um, with something like let's say a death penalty, bringing it back, maybe you start out with 5 options. Maybe you start out with yes, but only for the most serious people. You start out with no, not a death penalty, but we should have a prison island and we just shove them over there and we do have nothing to do with it. That basically you would do a round of voting and you knock one off. So then people have to keep choosing different ones
always to find the
and you
medium.
learn more and more over time of what people's issues with each option are, so you perfect them slightly so that you could get, and maybe it is that you say we never enact a policy unless we have over 70% of the country agree.
Yeah, the 70% that could be difficult because then you almost reach. I like again, it's all a work in progress. We have a community on X as well of people constantly giving ideas that it's so useful to have conversations like this. I'm always
Mm.
yapping to my mom and my dad as well about House of the People, and they're always giving me brilliant ideas about how I can
Well, I think
improve
it's
it.
because it's exciting, right? People are
Mm,
excited and they want to kind of say, oh, well, could we do this? Could we do that? And
literally.
obviously, it's a massive process, and what you're kind of putting forward here is a brand new way. That's going to take some time. It's not like
I
the
mean,
the old system is established and
exactly.
broken.
Exactly. And I
So
always find it's quite unfair. We shot up with we were doing well. We're doing well now. We're getting there. But again, it's been 2 weeks since we completely blew up. Again, when some of these questions are posed to me, and the questions I've really enjoyed this. I love talking about it. But sometimes if I'm doing a tour or if I'm speaking to someone and the question is they're questioning House of the People as though it has been around for 60 years and that the onus is on me all the time. Is that
mm,
For example, let's take the verification system. So we use the same verification system as UK dot petitions. We use email and postcode. And then people are pointing a finger at that, and I understand why, and saying, well, that's not the most stringent verification measures we could have. I entirely agree. Then why do the
Mm,
government have it? That's the point, is why is the onus on a very small team of people right now to build something entirely new? And we want to, and we almost have. And we already have built something, but it will reach it will only get better and better. But again, point some of these questions at the government as well. Point some of these
mm.
questions as to why has no one within the 450,000 now civil servants, no one within the government, no one within the Lords, no one that is paid to work for the government, come up with something like this? Because I'm sure a lot of people have had the idea. So why didn't they build it?
Yeah. That's why I had to speak to you, because you are the first person to build it, and it is so
Mm,
exciting. And I just think the more people find out about this, the more people are gonna download the app, get on the website, and
literally.
actually start getting involved.
Literally. I
And
mean,
I
the voting numbers are flying though. I mean, the most exciting thing is, sorry to cut you off. I'm just so excited about it. The most exciting thing is, once we reach 10,000 votes on any bill, judging if we are honored with the same rules as UK dot petitions, which we should be because we have the same verification systems, it will have to be responded to by Parliament. And once it reaches
mm,
100,000, it will have to be tabled by Parliament. We're on about 3,000, 4,000 votes on some of these bills. We're not far off now, you know?
yeah.
Yeah, sorry, that was just what to say.
No, I love it, because I think it's putting the power back in the people. And as you say, because I think that the whole petitions to Parliament thing and that 100,000 thing, that really has been one of the only ways people can
Mm,
kind of make their voices known to the politicians, sort of when you're in term. And I've signed a load of petitions over the years of like, this is an outrage, and the reality is they can bat it off.
mhm,
Whereas perhaps maybe there will be a day where if 5 million people, get enough votes for a topic that the actually we have a referendum that was decided by the people, as in like the 5 million people have said we want to have a vote on this, and if
mm.
you reach that threshold or whatever, then actually everyone does vote on it. And
I mean,
maybe
it makes sense. This is the
but
point. It's like this is why it's such fun talking about something like this, is because the concept is there. The first iteration of the platform is there, but we're still, it's House of the People. This is very much so a democratic process in the building process. I, People getting in contact with me, emailing me. There's been so many that have just had great ideas that I can quickly implement.
yeah.
Um, and, the numbers are all to be decided. Who knows, 5 million, 1 million, whatever. But the core concept seems to resonate with the majority of people. Well, I'm yet to find many at all, apart from people within establishment positions who don't resonate with the idea. Yeah.
Well, one of the things I have to put up to you, because I don't care. This is my podcast. I can say what I want. Look, I think this is a great idea, and I would love to
Mm.
see it grow, and I would love to see it implemented. However, you've got to kind of consider the other side in things as well. And one of the things that I don't love with how we govern is when we take steps into the unknown for no reason. It's like there's 195 other countries. Let one of them make the mistake first, or that policy worked over in this country. Could something like that be implemented here? How much have you looked at the other countries and how they do things? I know there's nothing specifically like this, but I know the Nordic countries tend to vote on a lot of things. Even in America by states, they have like mini referendums on should cannabis be legalized and stuff like that. How much do you look at stuff that goes on in the world and see that it is working?
I mean, digital voting in Estonia was implemented, I think, 2005, 2003, something around then.
Oh, I didn't know
Massively,
that.
yeah, has had a massive increase in voter turnout because it's a logical thing to do. They were doing it early. That was iPhone was 2007. I mean, almost everyone has a smartphone in this country now. It's a logical progression in just efficiency of the voting system itself. Switzerland has, of course, the canton system, direct democratic to a certain degree. It has quite a few referenda every year. But again, I think it's only 2% of the system has gone electronic. So, it's still largely paper based. So again, it's far from a perfect system. And again, it's not every issue and a continuous process. The
Mm.
brilliance of House of the People is that it's always there. houseofthepeople.com, it's always there. There's an eternal record of what we've done and we won't forget about it. Um, so essentially if I'm honest, I hadn't actually looked at Estonia and Switzerland prior to making House of the People, but then found out that they had something similar. Um, House of the People is essentially the best parts of both. Taking the sort of direct direct democratic model, semi-direct democratic model of Switzerland, the digitalization of Estonia, and combining them into a platform and soon to be app that massively improves democracy, in my opinion. Just in if I do go on a bit, I mean, I find we're so good on all media sources, national media sources, pointing the finger at other ways of governing and other bits of corruption, without occasionally looking at our own flaws and vulnerabilities within our own system. Yeah, let's look at just because I lived there for a bit and I love the country, Georgia, the country, not in the US. But look at Ivanishvili and his influence there with Georgian Dream and Putin. We can all look at that and say, yeah, look at how easily that. Well, look at how that election was influenced via Russian money. Understandable. Let's look at the money in some of the other elections, because I tell you what, nothing is uninfluenced in this world. All you got to
Yeah.
do is follow the money, and that's why we have all of the MPs' registered interests and Lords' registered interests easily displayable. But and this is not a statement against capitalism. In a capitalist system, capital is power. So if you want to see who is controlling things, look at where the money flows.
And I think what a brilliant way to really remove all of that nonsense and pals getting contracts or whatever, because if generally most of the things come down to how the people vote, you can't bribe us all. Or maybe you can.
100 million?
Yeah. Okay, fine. I think this has been fascinating. Is there anything that you want to say that I haven't asked you yet before we wrap
I'll
up?
probably just briefly plug all the socials again. Instagram, House of the People Official, Twitter, HOTP Official. Main thing above all, website, houseofthepeople.com. Houseofthepeople.com. That's above all, that's what I care about you going on. The social media is just there for updates and to tell you what we've been improving on the website. The website is what you should be on, voting, making your voice heard, checking out your MP. Do they actually represent you? And have a bit of fun as well. It's quite a slick app now. So
Yeah. Charlie, thank you so much for this, and well done on the work you're doing. Obviously, it's early days, but I
mhm.
think this is exactly what the country and maybe the world need at the moment. I think so many people feel powerless, really feel like there's just elites and cattle and they don't have a voice. And this is a really clever way of meeting the challenges of the modern world and actually giving people back some power. So I really wish you luck with it.
Thank you so much, Lewis.
Subscribe for more content.